senior officers or who they think are quarreling. Paris calls Neelix a hedgehog, and
I
then a
love
fist
that
fight
line.
ensues. And so then I go, are those not extinct? Because I just was thinking about, people having them as like pets or something, and then like all of a sudden there's no more hedgehogs, and it's like, would he know what a hedgehog is at this point in time? Oh well.
I am fascinated that a culture that lives in the Delta Quadrant, 70 what
Mm-hmm.
70,000 no 70 light years away, not
Mm-hmm.
70 light years away,
Hmm.
70 years away from Earth, 700 years in the future, knows what a hedgehog is
Right.
and knows what it looks like and knows enough that if you called somebody that, it would be an insult. I
Right.
am That is incredibly fascinating to me.
I mean, maybe Tom has showed him what a hedgehog looks like.
Yeah, maybe one of the artifacts they found was someone's skeletal remains of their pet dead hedgehog. We never
Maybe.
know.
They
Their
looked it up on Space Wikipedia
their
and
Yeah.
hedgehog drawings. Yeah. Uh, and to stop the fight, Janeway shoots a panel off the wall. And I wrote, it was expensive. And the doctor is like, I can't even tell you how wrong this is. And he's telling Quarren, they were trying to make a trade deal with the Vaskins, and then the Kirians attacked, and Quarren's all like, well, just wait till you see the rest of it, like that's really gonna like it's gonna all of a sudden turn into, their whole the truth, reality or whatever. And so they continue the simulation, and we see Janeway, grab the big gun and kill Tendrin. And but we find out that from the doctor that Tendrin actually led the attack. And the doctor tells Quorn that this is just revisionist history, as we've explained. I mean, you could even name this episode that.
Hmm.
But Quorn, of course, when faced with an alternative possibility, he denies it and he gets mad and literally shuts down, or at least literally shuts down the doctor's program, and he turns off the EMH because he's just, oh, of course not, because he's put his whole life into doing this,
Mhm.
but he's only seen like his side of the story. He's filled it in. Uh, he's used the frog DNA to fill in the story when it probably shouldn't have.
Exactly. And now all the dinosaurs are loose on Voyager. So that's
Right? Yeah.
what's happening here.
The dinosaurs don't have feathers, like
But also too, like, think back to earlier in the episode where Quarren gets confronted by the other guy, and he's like, "Well, what if these artifacts reveal a different truth? What then?" He's like, "Well, we'll adjust our attitude accordingly." Like, he's so confident that these facts will, or these artifacts will not change his perception of the truth, that he makes that claim. And yet when he's presented with the very thing that will do just that, as you said, Brooke, he literally shuts down. Like, he shuts down the doctor's program. He doesn't even want to discuss it, because it's easy to say that you'll change your mind if you're presented with the right facts, but it's hard to do. It's very hard to do, especially if it's something that you've believed since you were a child. And now as an adult, you've poured your whole life into this museum to find out that everything you believed to be true was a lie. It's incredibly difficult to let that go.
Yeah, and he the way he does the performance on that line is really good, because it shows, like, oh, he's just saying that they'll change accordingly just to appease this guy. But you can tell by the line reading that the character, like you said, doesn't think it's really going to change. It's not going to change his opinion, and so I really liked that that whole interaction, because it wasn't it wasn't what he said, it was how he said it to know what he thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also really love how the doctor, I mean, it's a comedic moment, but the doctor is like, "You've got all of the characters wrong."
Yeah.
Well, except for Tom Paris.
Right, yes.
That was great. That was great.
And he was like carousing around or something. Oh, hilarious.
Because he was like, maybe if you weren't chasing the female ensigns, and it's like, you got everybody wrong. Well, except for Tom Paris.
Yeah, that fits Tom Paris.
Oh, it's so funny. Anyway, so then we see Quorn at some point in time later in his future. He is dictating to his recorder, and we find out that he's feeling a little bit of remorse for his accusations on Voyager. And he notes that, the doctor's a hologram, and he probably wouldn't be programmed to readily lie like that. So maybe he was telling the truth. So we can tell he's done some soul searching, and he's had a bit of change of heart, and all those other cliched phrases.
Well, I think that, there's one piece of evidence that they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that he's a hologram.
Yeah.
The doctor can say anything and it can all be dismissed, but the fact is they thought he was an android and he's a hologram. So, like, what else can be wrong?
Right.
And I think, like, if there wasn't that one piece of evidence, like, if they had just thought he was a hologram, the story might have just ended there.
Mm-hmm.
But, because there was that whole thing where he was confronted with this one verifiable truth, we thought this, and this is the reality. He has to confront that. There's no way around it.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because it's really what starts the ball rolling. I mean, to get such a big thing wrong, I mean, that's a huge thing. You thought he was a completely different type of life form, and it turns out he's something, altogether, which so it means, everything that you had extrapolated based on thinking that the doctor's an android, well, then that's all incorrect too. So it really does, it's like this one little drop in the bucket, but then it starts to build and build and build until you realize we could have gotten so much wrong. It's probably worth listening to the doctor here to see what really happened. And you're right, if they had gotten that right, that he was a hologram, it probably it would have made no difference. But because he's confronted with it, he can't deny it. Wow, we got this totally wrong. Now all of a sudden things are he's questioning decisions that have been made.
Well, I feel like he could have just ignored it if he wanted to keep everything how it was, but he, it's like he now has like a moral obligation, like, because he actually cares about it. Like, it's because if he just decided he did not care and he's like, fine, we just got that one thing wrong, he could just go on with his life and never turn the doctor back on, never worry about if the story was right or not. But because he's got he has some sort of like moral problem with it, then he that, oh well, what if we're all that?
Yeah,
he actually,
well, I mean, I think you can see that he's a man of some kind of principle, of some kind of moral principle. So for him to say, I have an obligation to the truth, I have to investigate this further. I think that is definitely something to be like praised, at least, that the fact that he was humble enough to say, I want the truth, not just my version of the truth. So let me explore this further.
Yeah.
Well, and even like in the next scene when he reactivates the doctor, it's like he's like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want out of like knowing this new reality, but I can't just leave it here. Like it's too much just to know it now. There's got to be more.
Well, and we know that Quorn is what's a good word? Like he's obsessive, but like inquisitive. Like because he spent his whole life researching all of this and working, either by himself or with other people to try to find the truth and to piece together everything, and working with the archaeologists when they find things and all that kind of thing. And it's like, so if he's someone who wants to search for all of that, like he wants to continue his search when he's given a new piece of evidence, so that's cool because he, it's part of his personality. That's something that he is compelled to do. So, and it's for good reasons.
Yeah.
So, as Nicola said, he brings back the doctor, and they're talking. The doctor's like, "I got this. I'll take care of it."
Well, and the doctor's so sarcastic. Like, why did you want to talk to a mass murderer like me?
Yes, yes. What? But I'm a mass murderer. It's almost like I would have thought you were afraid I would kill you. Like if he would say something like that, but I didn't. So we see regular Janeway in the doctor simulation. The ambassador is telling them they're having trouble with diplomacy with the Kyrians, and so she calls sick bay and she's like, "Hey doctor, we need to get these medical supplies ready because we're going to trade with them." And they're attacked. It's the good old Star Trek set shaking. Turns out it's Tedrin and the Kyrians, which would be a great like 80s new wave band.
Tedrin and the Kyrians, I love
it. They're in the engine room and they're fighting and stuff, and they take Kim and Seven hostage in what we see, but the doctor's like an uninjured member of the crew, like something like that is what he says. And I'm like, but he's actually one of the characters. Anyway, they killed some crew members. They took them to the mess hall. And we see the doctor and Janeway and the ambassador had followed them, and they go in and they're confronting Tedrin and everybody. And Tedrin's like, "You all are conspiring with these aliens. You're going to do all this stuff." He's accusing the ambassador of all of these things. And they kind of get an argument, and then the ambassador shoots him.
Yeah.
Oh, well, crap, And they're like, "No, oh, dude, we were going to talk this out." So there are 9 Kyrian ships, and then they attack Voyager after that. Then we see that we're in another room, and this simulation has been shown to like the council or something, and they start arguing about who started the war. And one of the guys is like, "Oh, don't worry about things that happen now," because the Kyrian delegate, she's like, we're a lesser race. We still can't go to our kids can't go to the same schools as yours do, and all this kind of stuff. So, it's important. And he's like, "Well, it's, the history part's what's important, not what's going on now." And it's like, listen, buddy, what happened then affects what happens now. So you do need to find out what happened so that you can make things better now. Not like, oh yeah, slavery happened. That sucks. Sorry.